A very good afternoon and welcome to the WHIP, another episode, another weekend. And we again privileged to have so many of you with us. So many of you joining us this afternoon. And for those of you who are new to the program, let me just walk you through what the program is all about. Again, we are a half-hour program focused on all things parliamentary, the issues, the individuals that occupy the House, scrutiny of bills and motions, questions brought and answers table, and more so how all of this impacts us as citizens. And we invite you guys as you come on this afternoon, as you come on to share the live stream wherever you're picking us up from. Share the live stream this afternoon. Let me walk you through the order paper for this afternoon's program. We are going to be talking about the no confidence motion that has been brought against the installed Minister of Health, Frank Anthony, and also that other no confidence motion that has been brought against the installed Minister of Home Affairs, Robeson Benn. And we're privileged this afternoon to be joined by our opposition chief whip, Mr. Christopher Jones. But first, ladies and gentlemen, but first. And welcome back. And we have with us, as promised, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, Chief Whip Christopher Jones. Chris, a very good afternoon and welcome back.
Good afternoon, Cheryl. Good afternoon, viewers, and thank you very much.
I've been telling folks that you've been on a special assignment, and so you've been out of the public view for a little bit, but we are so happy and privileged to have you back.
Absolutely correct. A lot of work to be done both locally and, of course, abroad.
Exactly. And as we talk about the work that is to be done locally, a lot of legislative work is still to be done locally. And I want to walk our viewers through what has been perhaps the scorecard of the installed PPP regime, who had promised us a very robust legislative agenda. To date, we have had 19 pieces of legislation, believe it or not, that has been passed in the National Assembly over the last 11 months, which gives us about 2 pieces of legislation per month, which is really, really and truly poor. We've had about 13 pieces of legislation, which have been just amendments of that 19, which means they were already legislation in the legislative pipework and just are passed now and amended. 5 of the 19 had to do with the appropriations bill and the supplementary appropriations bill, basically deal with budgetary issues. As against 33 pieces of legislation comparatively that were passed under the APNU AFC administration in their first 11 months in office. So clearly, the PPP is lagging way, way, way behind. More specifically, Chris, we have brought these no confidence motion to the public. Let's start with the no confidence motion that deals with the Minister of Health and his so many shortcomings. For instance, we know that COVID right now, we have over 500 deaths, 509 to be specific. That's a far climb from 21 when they came into office. And we have over 21,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. That's a far stretch from 474 when they took office. Chris?
Jared, thank you very much. I am happy. I was most pleased recently when you brought to the public's domain in terms of the 19 pieces of legislation, 5 of which happen to be that the People's Progressive Party Civic had brought to the House in there almost a year since taking office. And the fact of the matter is that all of the legislation that we were dealing with and so forth were essentially legislation that was passed under the APNU AFC government. And the only time the PPP comes to the parliament is when it comes with a budget or a supplementary budget. So I am happy you brought it to the public, and I'm happy now that all and sundry is aware. So when you saw going to the parliament and believing that is the PPP and all this talk that they had about bringing legislation to the national side. It has been the legislations that were the AA and UAFC government that have been amending. And the five that you mentioned is the budgets that were passed and the supplementary budgets that they came back for, the people's money. As it relates to where those monies went and so forth, that brings us to the very individual and the reason or the rationale behind the no confidence motion in him. In every country across the world, during this pandemic, there is the point person who has the ultimate responsibility for public health. And that happens to be Dr. Frank Anthony. And when one looks at the manner in which, or the lack thereof, in which he has been handling COVID-19, the pandemic, and the to help the people cope with the deadly virus, it has been non-existent. The fact of the matter that in Guyana every day now, it appears that we have a death toll or death rate of 3 to 4 persons per day. Now, younger children, 16 years old, 17 years old, losing their life to the pandemic speaks to the incompetence of the person who has that responsibility. And person might say, well, man, you know, Anthony is an individual. He ain't responsible for somebody, child getting COVID-19. This brings us to the point that he is the point person. In Anthony, who is to advise the person responsible as it relates to why schools should not be reopened, about the various variants of the disease that is prevalent. And as such, the education sector will take the necessary precaution to ensure the safety and protection of children. Frank Anthony has failed in that regard. Then it comes to the measures that have been put in place that should be enforced. 2 ways. One, by the Ministry of Health constantly advising the public security sector in terms of what is happening as it relates to COVID-19 and why strict adherence to the measures that have been put in place must be enforced. And of course, we will come soon to Robeson Benn, who has that ultimate responsibility. In that regard, Frank Anthony has failed in that regard. You go about the city, and most persons focus on what is happening, not only in the city, but throughout the country during the evening. Now, it is not the case that COVID-19 goes away during sunrise when the sun is up, and COVID-19 only comes out when the sun is down. So the enforcement of the measures is not only during the evening, but in a full 24 hours. And you're not seeing that enforcement by these persons who have this responsibility. It is lackluster. It is non-existent. And these individuals, Frank Anthony and Robeson Benn, has to take the full brunt of the situation. And they have to be held accountable. Now, by virtue of us, in the current situation that we have with over 500 deaths, the variants that are running rampant, and of course, the non-enforcement of the measures, these two individuals who are the point persons responsible for that, for those areas, public health and public security, must take the full brunt of this.
Well said, Christopher Jones, Opposition Chief Whip. I'm happy you introduced the what is fact, that there are variants that could well be among us, because that is what Frank Anthony said. We have to assume that we have the variants, whether it's Delta or whatever variants are there in the larger world, because they took a decision, as he said also, to open back the airports, and so people coming and going. Basically, anything is possible, and all of their systems are porous. So you add that to the fact that you have 2 budgets later. People are saying they don't have any medications in the health centers, no medication in the hospitals. You couple it with that. And then you couple it with the failings that they've had with some of these vaccines and the procurement of vaccines. We're still waiting for some of the Sputnik V to come. Some of the characters have been questionable, which has brought into question the very vaccines that the people should be taking. Chris, and even on that note, quite recently we learned that there was a batch of Moderna vaccines that came into the country. Now the Minister of Health is refusing to let the public know where they got these vaccines from, who were the donors. He is refusing vehemently to inform the public who are these donors and what they want in return.
Exactly. But there we go again. The fact that the opposition was able to expose Frank Anthony and the purchase of the Sputnik V vaccine from this sheik that flew into Guyana, and no one knew. Right, and no one knew at that time that the sheik was bringing or coming to transact business as it relates to vaccine purchase. No one knew that. It was until the opposition exposed that fact. And of course, the question that arose as a result of that is whether or not these vaccines are the authentic vaccines that comes from Russia. But then subsequently, we saw a pronouncement by an alleged Russian authority as it relates to Sputnik V vaccine. And of course, that speaks about vaccine hesitancy that we're seeing across the country. Here it is again as it relates to Moderna. And the simple fact of the matter that Frank Anthony is refusing to inform the general public as to where you get these vaccines from. And you know the thing, what is vexing about this is that Frank Anthony gives you the impression that the monies that were used to acquire these vaccines, the Moderna, came from Frank Anthony's pocket. So it's a right to determine whether or not he'll tell John public who bought it from and so forth. And this is to the point that we're made. Why we have lost confidence in this individual, because these individuals believe that they are lords unto themselves. These monies to purchase this Moderna vaccine didn't come from Freedom House. Ballot Jagdee didn't come out of his pocket. These are people's money, and therefore the PPP must always be held accountable for the people's money. Where you spent it, why you spent it, why you paid that amount, why you used that person or individual or company or organization to purchase it from. That is what governments, what you call transparent and democratic governments, that's what they do. Frank Anthony should have been happy to tell John public that yes, these vaccines were purchased from this company, it is located here, and that sort of thing. So it will relieve any anxiety or hesitancy amongst the people as it relates to taking these vaccines. The mere fact that Frank Anthony has shut shop or closed his mouth and not speaking as to where he got it from, immediately it raises questions. And in the public domain, I will be hesitant. I would be hesitant now. The mere fact that Frank Anthony is not telling me where he purchased this vaccine from, that I could confirm that this is an authentic source that he purchased it from, I would be hesitant to take the vaccine. And the same situation we had with the Sputnik V. You understand me? And this is why a no confidence motion, because we've lost our confidence in him. You can't trust his word. You can't trust his word in the National Assembly when the questions were being asked about the V vaccine. He gave about 4 different answers to the same question, and that was as it relates to the World Health Organization approving vaccine. Frank Anthony, in his own words, in the National Assembly, said, and I quote, that about 3 months ago, the World Health Organization approved Sputnik V. He said that in the National Assembly. And then when he was cross-referenced and the questions continued to flow, Frank Anthony came back and said, it's now in the process to about to be approved. Several different answers for the same question in the National Assembly. And therefore, you can't trust these individuals and their word. And when they speak about vaccine hesitancy across the country, this is the exact same reason why people are hesitant to take a vaccine, because they don't know the source, and the people who are supposed to tell you the sources are refusing to tell you, as if they took the money out of their pocket to purchase these vaccines.
I'm just saying we're going to continue to monitor where these vaccines came from, because we cannot continue to operate as though in the wider world we aren't noticing what is happening there. In India, that produces vaccines, we learned quite recently that there were fake vaccines on the market. You had doctors and medical professionals involved in injecting people with plain salt water and saline solution, passing it off as vaccines. Right? So we
That's
cannot
right.
divorce ourselves from all of those things that are happening elsewhere. Right?
And it's noteworthy to remember as well that some of the very vaccines that we got in Guyana were donated from India.
Correct. Chief Whip, I want to turn your attention and that of the viewers to the no confidence motion against the installed Robeson Benn. Now, crime is you open the papers every day, you read social media, and you see where we are currently. They wanted to say that serious crimes are down, but there have been 65 murders to date. 65 murders to date. I think one murder in a country is one too many. And you have lots of domestic violence happening, you have theft happening, and you have what the government has even said is a lot of rape also happening. A lot of rape. They said rape has increased by 70%. And however you look at crime, it is in your face every day. You can't even leave your carpet on your fence, Chris. Just opening social media this morning, we learned 2 headlines jumped out at us. The penitence man ambushed in Linden while heading to female friend. 1 dead, 1 injured. Another headline just this morning, 22-year-old farmer in Region 2 gunned down. Chief Whip?
Yep. Now, first question, Sherrod, who killed the Henry boys?
Yes.
And on September the 5th, this year, 2021, will mark 1 year since the gruesome murder of the Henry boys there on the West Coast Boobies. 1 year after, and to date, we don't know who the perpetrators are. That one incident that led to mass demonstration in the West Coast Boobies and many other parts of the country, including Georgetown, sparked outrage. You had Irfan Ali himself went all the way there to West Coast Boobies and promised the mothers of the Henry boys swift action.
Yes.
No stone will be unturned.
Yeah.
I will do everything in my power to ensure that justice is served as it relates to the Henry boys. Nearly 1 year later,
yeah,
we don't even know who killed them. 1 year later, and Robeson Benn is the exactly, and Robeson Benn has the authority in the public security sector. Now, you mentioned the fact about the 2 headlines screaming out to you today. But outside of that, Sherrod, there are so many crimes that are perpetuated every day that goes unreported.
Yeah.
The person walking down Regent Street and the chain gets snatched. A woman going home, her purse and her handbag get taken away. All of that is happening in this country. And the thing that the police force no longer do, like what used to be obtained under the APN UAFC government, is that you will have these quarterly reports or even monthly reports in which they will tell you the percentage of increase in crime, whether it's serious crime, and they will give you the breakdown per region. So you have an idea, in this region, crime has reduced and so forth. And what that does is that it guides you as an authority that if the percentage of a particular crime in a particular region has reduced over the period, then therefore I have to find out from those police authority in that particular region, what is it that you are doing differently that the other regions are not? And use that and apply that in the other regions as to help to curb crime, prevent crime, and to reduce crime. You don't have those reports anymore. We don't even know if the reports are even made and probably presented to Robeson Benn as the person with that responsibility. But again, it comes to the public. The public has a right to know where crimes are, the increase are. So therefore, I must I will be in a position to protect myself and family or take the necessary precaution. If in a particular region or an area there is heavy crime in which chains and handbags are being snatched, I know that when I'm going there, don't wear your collars or whatever the case be and so forth. But that information you don't even get. And that, along with, as we mentioned earlier, as relates to Frank Anthony not providing us with the information in terms of where they're purchasing these vaccines from, lends to the dictatorial tendencies of the PPP. That is how dictators operate. There is no transparency. There's no accountability. They feel that they are lords unto themselves and they are fully in charge. Every single day, crime is in the increase in Guyana. You hear absolutely nothing from Robeson Benn as to what are some of the solutions, what are some of the recommendations, what are you coming up with. We don't know nothing about it. But every day, the average Guyanese businessman or the average Guyanese person suffered, like the young farmer there in Region 2. And just recently, we mentioned about the farmer who committed suicide. Now here, there's a young farmer getting up before bird wife wake up every day and going out into his field and work. And farming is not an easy job. And to have bandits pounce on you, rob you of your hard work earnings, and then more so now they kill you, is the families left there traumatized. And that is happening across this country. There's no solution to it. Robeson Benn doesn't have the solution to it, and therefore Robeson Benn is incompetent as it relates to this sector. Robeson Benn served as the person responsible for public infrastructure in the last dispensation under the PPP. Now, we don't even know about Robeson Benn having a security type background to say, well, yes, he has some knowledge about this sector, and therefore he can manage this sector efficiently and effectively. We don't have that. So he's just placed there because as a party man. So party man, you take a big position. And as a result of that, you have the crime situation in the country. I remind your viewers, Cheryl, just a few months ago, the U.S. Embassy here in Guyana issued a statement warning U.S. citizens not to travel in certain areas in Guyana because the crime situation is such. Now, when you have most people traveling to countries, you first want to check a few things like the crime situation in the country, the political situation in the country, and so forth before you travel. So you imagine
investments too.
Exactly. So you imagine the business people out wanting to do business in Guyana, and every day you open the newspapers in Guyana, you see robbery, murder, rape, chain snatching. It doesn't encourage you. That is not a climate in which a businessman would want to come and invest, because likely he may have to come here with his family or his business partners, set up shop somewhere, and they live in fear because at any time bandits can pounce on you in your home or on the road, as demonstrated what is happening in this country every single day. As you rightfully said, these are not isolated cases that you read a story today and you see something like 2 weeks after, literally every day.
Yeah.
And God forbid, I believe by this afternoon perhaps, you might see another screaming headline of some robbery, some killing, some murder, or something in this country. That is the reality of Guyana now. And I challenge your viewers, Sharon, I challenge your viewers to juxtapose the 5 years under the APNU AFC government and relate to us a period in which you had screaming headlines on a daily basis. And they will have difficulties finding that because we manage the security sector of this country in an effective and efficient way. Under the APNU AFC government, that's when the piracy on the high seas that every day under the PPP you used to read about, it was under the APNU AFC government that you saw a decrease to almost nothing. No report of piracy on the high seas because we dealt with the security situation in the country effectively and efficiently. Robeson Benn doesn't have that background, that knowledge, that skill, that competence. And that is why we view him as incompetent in this particular sector. And that is why the motion of no confidence has been brought against him.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, Chris, on that very note, there was a promise of a crime plan as part of, if you call a few pages thrown together, a manifesto, part of the PPP's manifesto crime plan. We're still waiting. They have been very pedestrian on these issues. We have passed money in the National Assembly months ago for public servants, as you pointed out. They're yet to get it. We passed in the National Assembly money for the farmers, $10 billion. They are yet to get it. The Minister of Finance is telling us just this morning, they are now looking at an optimal package for farmers. They've been very pedestrian on these issues, and which really and truly is a total failure of leadership.
Listen, the crime plan that the PPP has in place is the same crime plan that they instituted when they were in office before 2015. And that is identify a group of individuals that you put some authority on them, and they have overall responsibility outside of the legal provision that are there, which is the Guyana police force. And that is exactly what you see recently being set up right now. I think our colleague Annette Ferguson challenged it. It is alleged that she challenged it, and we have a court proceeding as relates to that. But what you're seeing, the Guyana police, the People's Progressive Party Civic, is setting up an annex force. That is the reality, and that is what was obtained under their leadership before. And those same persons, they operate above the law. There has been no legislation that has been brought to the National Assembly of Guyana to amend any laws, any provision to allow this body that they're setting up, what do you call it, the regional security force or regional task force or whatever it is. There's no provision in exactly. There's no provision in law for that. It is illegal. It is illegal. Exactly, and therefore the monies that were allocated, even though we fought and we asked questions, and then we were told that it's something of a security nature. So again, millions of taxpayers' dollars are being spent on something that is unconstitutional, and of course it will be challenged. It will be challenged. So that is not a question. It will be challenged. So the operation of this group, body, or persons involved in this thing, it will be challenged, and more so like what the PNC did some years ago, subject to correction. I don't want to call the names of the officers because I don't want to misquote. But several years ago, when a similar body was set up by the PPP and they started to operate, which is outside of the Constitution and above the law, we brought private criminal charges to them, and this was taken to The Hague. Now, if we have to sound the warning bells now, we'll do so. That the individuals, as in each and every single individuals, irrespective of your position, whether you is the man in charge, the second in command, or the third, we're talking about each and every single individual. So if this happens to be a 200-man squad, and they're comprised of people from regions 1 to 10, each and every single individual, by virtue of being involved in this grouping, you are subjected to being challenged. Because this could lead to crime against humanity. The minute they touch you or deprive someone of their liberty, movement, and so forth, if they arrest anyone, it is a crime. And that's why we say you bring challenges of crime against humanity to these individuals. So it's not going to be that my boss send me, or the commander or the squad in charge. You as an individual will be prosecuted. And that is that we want to sound that alarm now to those individuals, not only at the head, but each and every single individuals involved. That your name is going to be placed on a document, and we will be challenging you. Because the body that the PPP is attempting, or the PPP is claiming that they set up, is unconstitutional, because there has been no amendments to the laws or the constitution of this country to make any provision for that body that has been set up. Plus, the monies that have been taken out of the public's purse, that too will be challenged, because it is monies that are being spent on something that is unconstitutional. Therefore, the spending of those monies are unconstitutional. And they'll have to answer for that. They'll have to answer for that.
Yeah. And Chief Whip, talking about sounding the alarm. Now, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Mansour Nadir, has written to parliamentarian Anil Nandalal, who is coincidentally the Attorney General, asking for legal advice on these motions. Now, Nandalal himself had a hand in electing Mansour as the Speaker. So you can see how this is all working out nicely for them. And there will be no surprises to the public, perhaps, how these motions are going to go. But as you talked about staying abreast of what is happening, we aren't leaving it here. We are making our voices heard with boots on the ground every Wednesday. Tell us about that before we go.
That's right. So quickly, before I even reach on Wednesday, Sharon, as it relates to the Speaker of the National Assembly, of which I consider someone I know for many years, being a non-member of the National Assembly until my first stint from 2011 in the National Assembly. I know Mansour Nadir for a number of years, even before getting involved in the politics to begin with. And it is most shocking and surprising that he will allow himself, well, I can't say that it's shocking, because you see, that's how the PPP operates, and he is a member of the People's Progressive Party Civic. But to allow himself to diminish his reputation as someone who you could look up to and respect. You know, the slang on the street is that, listen, you're big and you got sense. Right? You're big and you got sense. It is unexpected that the Speaker of the National Assembly will invite Anil Nandalal, who is his party comrade, to tell us about the constitutionality of the no confidence motion in his two political colleagues in the parliament.
Yeah.
It's literally you're asking a thief, man, to see if you could open the vault.
Yeah, and opposition chief whip. These are the folks who had a big problem with Comrade Ramjitan providing a legal opinion for David Patterson. These are the same people.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the institution is polluted. There's no question. You can read. And that's why I'm saying is that, listen, the Speaker of the National Assembly, you're big and you got sense. You can read for yourself. You read and your interpretation, and that is the end of the game. But to ask your colleague, your PPP colleague, to confirm whether or not this motion of no confidence in his political colleague could go forward or not, it's folly. It's folly, and you make a mockery of yourself. You make yourself look, I don't want to use that word, but it makes yourself look very, you know, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. But Sharon, we spoke about Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, you're looking thin. Or to use your term, you look like one of them cook shop was started out with the food taste nice, and then the taste gone, and then the price gone up. You know, truly. Exactly. The Constitution is polluted as it relates to the appointment of the leader of the opposition, and that is something that is done by the opposition members of the parliament. It has no provision for nothing else. So I move what? And the Speaker should have do the honorable thing and disallow that. It should even reach the floor of the National Assembly because it has no place there. We have taken a stand that every Wednesday, including this Wednesday that is coming, which is a national holiday, that we go on the Square of the Revolution and we go there for 60 minutes during the lunchtime. And we invite persons to come, placards and so forth will be made available to you, and we come and we demonstrate and we speak about the issues in this country. You see what is happening in the US with Rickford Burke and his team. The folks in the diaspora, they are doing what they can. But at the end of the day, it is for boots and feet on the ground here in Guyana. You can't say that you have a problem with persons who Afro-Guyanese who are being terminated from their places of employment every day. You have a problem with that, but you don't have time to come out for 60 minutes. You can't say that you have a problem with Guyanese of African descent who are being deprived of contracts under the People's Progressive Party Civic, thus denying them the right to provide for their wife and children, to pay utility bills and so forth, just like you, and you don't have time to come out there for 60 minutes. You can't say that you have an issue with the people PPP denying contractors of all ethnicity because of the alleged association with the APNU AFC and depriving them the right to get contracts across this country, and you have a difficulty coming out there for 60
Yeah.
minutes. You
Yeah.
can't say that Bora, cocoa, shallot, blanche, pumpkin, edo, plantain, cassava,
Toilet
rice,
paper, soap,
sugar, cooking
gasoline.
oil, cooking gas, toilet paper, bounty, and all these things going up. Milk that you can't afford. That when you used to pay 10,000, now you gotta find 25 or $30,000, and you have difficulties with that, but you have a difficulty coming out there for 60 minutes. And the list goes on. You can't say that the crime situation and the lack there of proper security to protect you and your family. And as you know, crime and criminalities know no face or political persuasion, irrespective of that, where you live, what you got, if a bandit, a thief, what he coming for you. You can't say that you have a problem with the security situation in this country, but you don't have time to come out there for 6 me. That is why we're doing this. So I'm going out there and I put aside MP or chief whip. I'm going out there as a citizen of this country because at home I have my wife and my three.
And I'm going to be out there as well with Opposition Chief Whip Christopher Jones, making our voices heard there as well. As soon as he comes back, we're going to bring him on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, and we're going to be out there every Wednesday from 12 to 1 hour, folks, per week, making our voices heard against the madness that is happening on the ground home here in Guyana. And so, folks, join us. Those of you who can join us, join us. Now's the time. Boots on the ground, make your voices heard. Every Wednesday, we're going to be doing that activity there at the Square of the Revolution. Or someplace else, we're going to let you know, but at the Square of the Revolution this Wednesday, folks. Ensure that you are there. And as we wait for Chief Whip Christopher Jones to come back, guys, we encourage you guys to share the live stream. We want as many persons to get this message as possible. I think we have Chief Whip back with us just in a moment. But guys, again, I can't say it enough. On Wednesday coming, we're going to be there at the Square of the Revolution. And I have him back with us. Or do I? We are. Yeah, I think we do. Go right ahead, sir.
All right. Your CV is.
I
Right
think
ahead.
I did something.
Right ahead.
Okay,
I am in
great.
the right place.
Right. So that is why on Wednesday at. You hear me, Charlotte?
Yes, loud and clear.
Mercy. You're in the back.
I am hearing you. Go right ahead, Chris. I am hearing you. Go right ahead. I am hearing him, but he's perhaps not hearing me.
You're hearing me, Charlotte?
Go right ahead, Chris. Yes, I am. Loud and clear. We're going to work around the technology, folks. Chris, I am hearing you if you're hearing me. All right, we're gonna have him with his closing thoughts in just a minute, folks. Again, let me say it: we are going to be there on Wednesday at the Square of the Revolution. It's going to be from 12 to 1 every Wednesday moving forward, unless we advise you guys otherwise. And I think MP, yes, he's back with us. Go right ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Go right ahead. I'm going to hold for you.
That's 60 minutes. That one. Yeah. Right. Right. So I'm saying is that on Wednesday, outside at the Square of the Revolution, it provides that opportunity for you to come out and vent for that 60 minutes of all of these situations that we mentioned to you that is happening in this country. And of course, like the folks in the US and what they're doing, a similar activity will have to happen here in Guyana because the situation is unbearable. Literally, you are at the point now in which you no longer argue that are fed up with the PPP. And the PPP must go. I think all and sundry had enough, and that is exactly what we were were shouting to the rooftop about as it relates to the PPP. It was not by accident that the APNU AFC slogan was forward ever, backwards never. Because every facet of society that you see right now in this country is going back to the days of racism, discrimination. It's going back to the days of an administration that is unresponsive to the people. I give you, for example, like this road situation here on Mandela Avenue from Sherry Street all the way to the back road. I just came from Eccles Assemblies Church. I literally took 25 minutes from Tugville on Mandela Avenue to get to Eccles Church. Just that's one. And every single day you hear the complaints of the average guy across this country about the situation in this country. Look at the public servants. So much money, billions of dollars that we have allocated in the National Assembly. And to this day, not a single public servant have been able to get $1,000 increase in salary. Now, what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
And they will turn this entire nation as they did before 2015 to mendicants. They like to see people line up in long line for collect money. They like to see you stand up by the roadside with a cup in hand, forget a bag of rice or a pound of sugar. People love that. And you will see they will plaster you all over DPI and the Guyana Times and all of these newspapers because that is what they like. And that is why these implementation with the $19,000 cash, because we care cash grant for children and so forth. Now we're objecting to monies going to people, but the intent of this $19,000 is for parents to have the opportunity to acquire equipment and so forth so that their children will be able to access education. That is the perception. Reality on the ground is that cost of living is so high that when a parent collect this $19,000, he or she has to then now choose what is the main priority. They have rent to pay. They have mortgage to pay. Should I take this money and actually purchase something like a tablet for my children, or should I pay the landlord so that we will stay in the house? Exactly, things tight. And that is why we're saying it's they don't think, they like this mendicancy type operation in which you got long lines across the country. Some minister pomposet the empty self and talk about how the goodness and mercy of the People's Progressive Party civic, and you'll get 2 person or 3 person with tears running down their eyes, and they plaster that all over. Emotions went wild. People are so happy. Oh God, that's out of nonsense. Put the money in the public servant's salary. Increase the people's wages and salaries, then they will be able to pay for education materials for their children, and they will be able to purchase food to cook and provide for their family, pay their mortgages and so forth. That is what you do. But instead of doing that, they deprive people of increases in wages and salary. The cost of living goes up so high, everybody starts to scream, oh God, it's tight, things rough. And then the people will come and try to pretend to be some savior. Oh, look, $19,000. Oh, look. That's our thing.
Wickedness.
Wicked. And this is something they do predominantly in the Amerindian communities. You go there, they go with a truckload of food. That's what they do. And they're doing the same thing now in the cities across this country. It is unacceptable. And people have to ensure that their dignity and respect for them, they must ensure that people respect you, and you have to have dignity for yourself. You are more important than that. This country and the resources in this country is so plentiful that every single Guyanese, irrespective of where they live or their ethnicity or which political party they support, should be able to live a comfortable life. And that is why the APNU AFC in government, we spoke about the good life. And the good life, as I said to people then, means something completely different to every individual. A good life for Cheryl Duncan would be that Cheryl is able to acquire a house lot and get a mortgage. A good life for Mary down in the street is that she's now able to drive a car on a paved road. A good life for somebody in Barbados, like a farmer, is be able to purchase the chemical that he needs for his farm. A good life for somebody in Port Kaituma would be that they are able to jump on a plane and travel to Georgetown at any time and so forth. The good life means something completely different to every individual. It is not the same. The good life means something completely different. And what we have right now in this country is getting worse because the People's Progressive Party said they only know one way or one type of way of governing a country. One, it is through fear and intimidation. The minute you speak, they will use the enforcement agency, as we are seeing demonstrated now, to bring some trumped up charges against individuals because they speak out. And that is how they rule. So the essentially is that they're saying to people that listen, you talk one word, I'm gonna send the police to you. You talk one word, I'm gonna knock you off. You talk one word and you're getting another contract in this. That is how these wicked bastards govern country. And I can tell you that, Sherrod, because I keep people. September of this year, we mark 23 years since I've been active in the political sphere of this country. And I've seen successive PPP government, our administration, and that is how they operate. By fear, intimidation. Turn people into mendicants in which they are giving you a little $14,000, $19,000, got you line up in long line, and they plaster you all over. Find some person who is indeed grateful because things are tight and their emotions run wild and tears are flowing. And that is what the people look for. Oh, mercy, you see the little lady in the car now, she cry up how she get the money. That is what they like. Instead of paying people a living wage and salary that they can afford to pay mortgages, put food on their table, send their children to school, provide them with education material. PPP don't interest in that. Once the cabal and their friends and cronies benefit and make good money, they're good. And everybody else could line up in long lines. And they'll find some individuals to jump on Facebook and so forth and talk some nice thing about them. That's what they like. That is not governance. That is not governance. That is dictatorship. That is the Cubana style of governance. And that is exactly what PPP knows. That is what they know.
Opposition Chief Whip Christopher Jones, I want to thank you for joining the broadcast. I know that these motions have already been passed by the public. This motion of no confidence against the installed Frank Anthony, this motion of no confidence against the installed Robeson Benn, they've already been passed by the public. So we are not waiting, and we're going to continue to be out there in the square of the revolution every Wednesday from 12 to 1 to make our voices heard out there. I want to thank you for spending this time with us, sir.
Most welcome, Sherrod. Most welcome.
Awesome. And folks, there you have it, Opposition Chief Whip Christopher Jones. And I want to walk you guys through what we discussed today on the auto paper. We dealt with the no confidence motion as regards Frank Anthony and the poor performance as a minister helming the Ministry of Health there, and the no confidence motion being brought against Mr. Robeson Benn. And again, his poor performance in the security sector. And that is why every day we're seeing these headlines, man shot, farmer gunned down, and all of this, crazy things that are happening. And it's time we stem this tide of decay, decadence and decay. And folks, these motions, as we said, have already been passed by you folks. And we are tremendously privileged that you choose to join us this week. Continue to social distance, wear your mask, sanitize, folks. These protocols and regulations are there for your health and that of your friends and your loved ones. And we do say, stay safe until we see you guys back next weekend. Thanks for joining us. And remember to share the live broadcast.